The avoidant person spends their entire relational existence fleeing from emotional demands and the suffocating weight of being needed. Their nervous system, conditioned to interpret dependency as danger, automatically triggers withdrawal whenever someone's happiness appears contingent on their presence or validation. However, there exists a singular boundary so transformative, it rewires their entire psychological relationship with intimacy and commitment. This boundary operates as a paradox that simultaneously honors their deepest need for autonomy while creating the safety necessary for genuine love to emerge and sustain itself indefinitely. The boundary of complete emotional self sufficiency. The transformative boundary involves maintaining absolute responsibility for one's own emotional well being, happiness, and life fulfillment, independent of the avoidant person's behavior or presence. This means building a life so genuinely satisfying and complete that the avoidant person's participation enhances rather than defines it. The distinction between wanting someone and needing them becomes the foundation upon which lasting love can finally develop without triggering the avoidant person's flight response. This boundary communicates that their presence represents a choice rather than a necessity, a desire rather than a desperate requirement for survival or happiness. The avoidant person experiences profound liberation, knowing they cannot destroy their partner's well-being through their need for space or occasional emotional withdrawal. This freedom from responsibility for another person's emotional stability allows them to approach intimacy without the terror that typically accompanies closeness. They discover they can love without fearing that their limitations will devastate someone who depends on them. How this boundary rewires avoidant psychology. The avoidant person's entire defensive structure exists to protect against being trapped by someone else's emotional needs. When they encounter someone who genuinely does not need them for happiness or fulfillment, their primary reason for maintaining distance dissolves. The psychological threat that intimacy represents diminishes dramatically when connection no longer carries the weight of another person's emotional survival. Their nervous system, constantly scanning for signs of dependency that signal danger, finds no triggers to activate withdrawal patterns. This creates unprecedented space for authentic attachment to form naturally, rather than being forced or demanded. The avoidant person begins experiencing genuine longing for connection because it emerges from desire rather than obligation. Without pressure to be someone's emotional anchor or source of validation, they can explore intimacy at their own pace without triggering panic. The boundary allows them to discover that wanting someone does not automatically lead to losing themselves or becoming trapped in suffocating dependency. The paradox of attraction through detachment. The avoidant person finds themselves magnetically drawn to someone who demonstrates they will thrive with or without them. This reverses every relational dynamic they have previously experienced, where their withdrawal typically triggered anxious pursuit and desperate attempts to restore connection. When someone maintains their happiness and forward momentum regardless of the avoidant person's level of engagement, it creates a psychological intrigue that bypasses their defensive mechanisms entirely. They begin pursuing closeness rather than fleeing from it, experiencing, for perhaps the first time, what it feels like to be the one more invested in maintaining connection. This role reversal proves transformative, as they discover that wanting someone who does not desperately need them feels safe rather than threatening. The boundary creates the conditions where their natural capacity for love can emerge without being stifled by fear of entrapment or responsibility for another person's emotional state. Why this boundary creates lasting love. The avoidant person develops enduring love only when they feel genuinely free to leave, yet consistently choose to stay. This boundary provides that freedom while simultaneously making staying more appealing than leaving. They fall in love with someone who respects their autonomy so completely that connection becomes a mutual choice, renewed daily, rather than an obligation enforced through guilt or emotional manipulation.